the session.
Thank you very much, Justice Prakash Srivastav, Honorable Chairman of the National Green Tribunal, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that my start time at 1:18 is 3 minutes after this session was to end. So I'll be very brief and quick and try and stick to the script. My presentation is in 3 parts, broadly. First, I want to suggest a framework. Second, I want to talk about a case which is still going on in the Supreme Court, which was mentioned by Justice Srivastav, and which has a sort of interesting twist in that it's the sort of case which might not come up in too many other jurisdictions. And finally, if I have a little time left, I will just give you, share a development in terms of what's happening in the BRICS space. So moving to the framework part, I'm suggesting a framework of 2 SDG goals. There's SDG, which is the Sustainable Development Goal adopted by all the states of the United Nations in 2015. And SDG 13 is essentially to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. And this is a goal we are to achieve by 2030. This is in the context, as we heard, of keeping global temperatures down to 1.5 degree Celsius below the green industrial levels. And 2024, let's remind ourselves, was the hottest year on record. The other one is Sustainable Development Goal 16. SDG 16 is focused on promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, to provide access to justice for all, and to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. A combined reading of both these goals suggests that we have not very much time, just 5 years left, for the purposes of achieving and attaining, building stronger institutions and putting in place structures which increase access to justice and which enable communities to really benefit from adaptation insofar as our goals are concerned. And here I want to just mention the other bookend, so to speak, as far as our analysis is concerned. This is the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion, which Justice Srivastava mentioned, rendered last month. The opinion, adopted unanimously, emphasized the role of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in providing the best available science. In many parts of the world, or at least in some parts of the world, science itself is under assault. The advisory opinion recalls that the environment is the foundation for human life, and the obligation of states to protect human rights extends to ensuring that we work urgently to limit greenhouse gas emissions. So here again, you have a crossover between the human rights space and the space with regard to protection of the environment. The case, you will recall, was triggered by a specific group of young students who were championed by the government of Vanuatu, with contributions made before the court from several nations. And I read one passage from the judgment which I found as an important call to those in this room, because it mentions the law. So turning to the advisory opinion, para 456, a complete solution to this daunting and self-inflicted problem requires the contribution of all fields of human knowledge, whether law, science, economics, or any other. Above all, a lasting and satisfactory solution requires human will and wisdom at the individual, social, and political levels to change our habits, comforts, and current way of life in order to secure a future for ourselves and those who are yet to come. What can we do as lawyers and bar associations within this space? May I share with you in advance an initiative by LAWASIA. Next month, LAWASIA, the Law Association for the Asia-Pacific region, will release the LAWASIA Manual on International Right to Remedy. This compendium of remedies available beyond local jurisdictions has a chapter dedicated to environmental rights. The purpose of this manual is an effort to build on the Sustainable Development Goals I mentioned and to provide access to justice and inclusive institutions. The manual points readers in the direction of various international fora and that lawyers and bar associations can access, much as the students of Vanuatu. So this will be distributed and released to all of you shortly. I urge that you distribute and disseminate this very widely, or as widely as possible, so that it gains traction. I'll now turn to the case which I mentioned. It was mentioned by Justice Srivastava as well. It goes by the short form of the Great Indian Bustard case. I pronounced that correctly. It's a magnificent bird, the Great Indian Bustard. It's the heaviest bird on the planet which is capable of flight. And this is an ongoing case in the Supreme Court of India, which pits, and I'll indicate that to you, but we have already 2 judgments on the point, and there is a third which is about to be passed after a hearing which will be held next month. Now, what's the problem? So the petitioner, including M.K. Ranjitsi, who's petitioned the Supreme Court in the public interest, he's a wildlife enthusiast, and he said that, look, the number of Great Indian bustards has come down below 100 in number, and this species is on the brink of extinction. So the Supreme Court was very concerned, and it issued directions for the purposes of ensuring that the bustard is protected. And one of the big problems which the bustard faces is that despite millions of years of evolution, it has very poor frontal vision, and it collides with overhead power lines. And we noticed, and the scientists noticed, that there were a huge number of bustard casualties because of collision. So the petitioners argued that, look, let's get these overhead underlines underground. Now that seemed to be a good solution, an expensive solution, but there was a huge pushback. And this is where the climate part comes in. The Great Indian Bustard's habitat is essentially in western India in the states of Rajasthan and Gujarat. And this is also a fantastic area for the purposes of solar power generation. So India has these climate goals in terms of renewable energy and solar power. And those solar power generators and transmission companies said that put your Great Indian Bustard aside, we need overhead transmission lines to evacuate all this power. So that's the contestation which is going on. On the one hand, there is a species extinction issue. On the other hand is this huge lobby of generating companies and transmission companies saying that we want to save costs. So the petitioners, and I represent the petitioners in that case, which is essentially the bird, but also the activists, are canvassing a position saying that these costs must be internalized by the companies themselves. And here I should just share with you that we have a specific provision in the Indian Companies Act, which might be a little new for some jurisdictions. Section 166 says that a director of a company shall act in good faith in order to promote the objects of the company for the benefit of its members as a whole and in the benefit of the interest of the company, its employees, the shareholders, and, now this is the interesting part, the community and for protection of the environment. So our Companies Act requires every company director to actually act in good faith, not only for the benefit of the company and the shareholders, but also for the benefit of the community and for the protection of the environment. So this is really a step forward. I have something to add to just a footnote to the concept of dharma. You recall yesterday, 3 of our justices from the Supreme Court, Justice Maheshwari, Justice N. Koteshwar Singh, and Justice V. Ramasubramanian, in their respective addresses, spoke of dharma and its various dimensions. Justice, of course, is part of it. Duty is part of it. And so I thought I'd just point out 2 elements of the Indian Constitution which really elevate environmental sensitivity to dharma. And one is Article 48A, which is directive principle. It's in our Constitution, and I quote it: "The state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and safeguard the forests and wildlife of the country." So it's up there in the Constitution. But that's not all. There's also a duty on the citizens under Article 51A, which requires that it's the duty of every citizen to protect and improve the national environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife, And this next bit is very interesting. I don't know how many constitutions adopt this standard. Duty of every citizen to have compassion for living creatures. So that's a really special flourish in the Indian Constitution. My time, I'm sure, is running out. So the little tidbit which I will share is something fresh out of the oven. It's regarding the 17th BRICS Summit, which took place in Rio in last month. BRICS today, as many of you know, it includes not only Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, but it has expanded to include Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and the United Arab Emirates. The Rio summit was significant because BRICS leaders signaled an ambition that if the Western world cannot deliver on climate justice, then the global South must step up and lead. The leaders endorsed a new framework on climate finance and demanded the progress on a $1.3 trillion Baku to Belém roadmap and backed Brazil's Tropical Forests Forever facility, a blended finance mechanism aimed at conserving tropical forests. So beyond finance, the summit also highlighted BRICS' growing role in the clean energy transition. So these are some ideas and food for thought. I must end by requesting all of you, because I notice there are a number of visitors to Delhi after this convention, not quite during it, but please spend your time looking at many of the treasures and joys which Delhi has to offer. Thank you very much.